Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today, we're honored to have Tim Danahey, former host of the Tim Danahey Show, a thought-provoking program that is currently on hiatus. He is a former board of director of the Coffee Party USA. While both Tim and I share similar values, our differences usually lends itself to great discussions and enhancements of both our beliefs. Tim is one of our most ardent supporters, and Tim has a passion as well. Tim called me up or texted me to let me know that, hey, been seeing the different topics you've been talking about, and I have something to add to those topics. Whether he disagree or not with me, I don't know. We're going to find out right now. Anyway, welcome to Politics Done Right, brother Tim Danahey. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. It's an honor that you would make time for me on your show. You're a good man.
Well, Tim, when I heard from you, I know you're always in the background. You're listening, you're talking, you're actually doing positives. Like I said in the pre, you are former member as well as I am of the Coffee Party USA. We made a difference, and we continue to try to make a difference. And again, one of the things that we've always realized is we always want to hear what others are saying. We never wanted to be just at our organization that just talk to you, but one that actually listen. And here we are. You have a whole lot of topics you want to discuss. So let's go and get busy about these things.
Well, let's talk about the one issue that prompted me to call you or contact you, and that is the current Republican Party, as opposed to the MAGA Party. And let's understand, Republicans are people with whom we can have policy disagreements, but yet we're still able to come up with some new ideas and move forward on some various things. We give a little, they give a little, but still it's a constructive process. MAGA should be identified as a party, and I think it needs to be isolated as such. Much like the Green Party or whatever other parties are out there, it needs to be identified as its own. And I believe that we need to take the Republicans and just say, here is what the MAGA platform is. Actually, the MAGA does not have a platform. We have to cobble one together from various sources. And so I think what the media and voters need to do is to take these Republicans and say, are these the values? Are these the planks in your platform that you support? And based on that, I think that we need to publicize that when these traditional Republicans, Murkowski, Romney, Cheney, even Mitch McConnell would fall into that. And what we need to do is let people who know that they're voting for Republican aren't voting for the traditional Republican anymore. They're voting for MAGA. And as a result, we need to force MAGA to state a platform to which Republicans, in the greater sense, can say, wait a minute, that's really not what I'm about. Just because they have an R as a sort of veil over their MAGA-ness, it doesn't necessarily represent what they vote. And Egberto, I put together a couple of issues that I'm sure that you have addressed on your show, for which multiple sources have come up with these planks for a platform, although not cohesively, and certainly not announced in either the 2020 or the upcoming 2024 conventions. But I think we need to ask Republicans, are these the planks that with which you can abide, or with which you choose to disavow? Do you want a continuation of Trump's tax cuts, $500 billion deficit over the next 10 years? Do you want to continue that? Allow Putin to invade non-paying NATO countries. Do you support that? We need to ask Republicans. Do you want to stop aid to the Ukraine? Do you want to cut IRS audits of rich people? Ask them. Is this what you believe? Do you want to end the Affordable Care Act? Republicans don't want to end it, in all honesty. Do you want to cut Social Security and Medicare? No, maybe modifications are necessary. Do you want to reduce antitrust enforcement, especially as it comes to big tech? No, they don't want to do that. Do you want to ignore climate change? Do you want strict abortion rules, including imprisonment? No, they don't want that. We need to isolate it. Do you want to end consumer protections? Republicans don't want to do that, but MAGA does. Do you want to reduce voting rights? No Republican would come out and say that, but a MAGA would come out and say, well, we need all kinds of identification and verification and whatever else. And then ask the Republicans, do you support the proposed $110 billion tax cut for the oil industry? We need to get them on the record, because that's the MAGA platform. And I don't believe Republicans support that platform.
It's interesting that we've gone so far to the right now that if you go to a progressive and tell them what you just said, which, by the way, I agree with you, because a lot of progressives right now, and I always talk about myself being a progressive and caucus. I call myself a progressive caucusing with the Democratic Party, because there is where the only place that the values that I support as a progressive can be realized. Okay. But a whole lot of people within the Democratic Party, not necessarily just progressives, but the rank and file Democrats, would look at the list that you claim there and say, oh, no, Tim. That's just who the Republicans aren't. But I agree with you, because after all, the EPA was done under a Republican president, and that's about the environment. After all, a lot of civil rights, in as much as it was Johnson who pushed it, it was progressive Republicans that got it over the hill. And I could name item after item. The Voting Rights Act. There was never a time that you'd ever have any substantial amount of Republicans going against the Voting Rights Act. So what used to be Republican, as you, I think, are alluding to, has really changed. And I think if we want a country that's taking care of itself and that's working not just with one side, but people getting together, we need to do some of what you're talking about there. And that is letting people think about what they believe and acting in that regards, and not getting co-opted like MAGA has co-opted the Republican Party. I've always spoken about, I want pushback. I want a healthy Republican Party. I want a healthy conservative movement, because they're the ones, believe it or not, as progressive as I am, as progressive. Well, you're not as progressive, but you're there.
I might surprise you.
Okay,
I say I'm a pragmatic progressive.
Progressive.
You and I have
Okay.
the same goals, but
Okay.
I may be measured in how to attain them.
Got you. Got you. But what I'm saying then is I want somebody there to say, you're I know your intentions, but you may be going too far because, and give me a logical reason that explains why. That's what I need a conservative for. But you get my
Well,
point.
yes, Steve Allen, an American humorist from the 50s and 60s primarily. He was one of the original hosts of The Tonight Show before
Hmm.
Johnny Carson. He once wrote a book about liberalism, and he said liberals are the engine and conservatives are the brakes.
Hmm.
You know, you can't operate, you can't get anywhere with just brakes, and you can go
Exactly.
too far with just
Engine.
engine. You
Yes.
know, so you stop and go and stop and go, but it gets you to a good destination.
Right.
So I think that by valuing the Republicans, and just say, are you a member of the Republican Party? Or just say, this is the MAGA platform. Are you MAGA or are you Republican? And we need to delineate it and put their feet to the fire and just say, well, I'm both. And we'll craft some response to that.
Exactly.
But the MAGA party is dangerous. It's awful. It's evil. It's deceitful. It's tyrannical. It is horrid in so many ways. And I think good people would not align themselves with that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because a lot of our evangelical brethren have lock, stock, and barrel have adapted the MAGA platform, and it is concerning because when it comes to religion, a pastor is just that, a pastor that leads a flock. Unlike the secular, a pastor lead the flock, and just like Jim Jones led a flock to death, a pastor can lead a flock to do a whole lot of bad things, which is what I think has begun to happen.
Well, I have a spiritual component to my life, and you know, and I just say everybody should have an independent search for the truth. But whenever pastors present something that is so obviously inconsistent with any sincere faith, and whenever any adjective I apply to it, you have to be careful. Sincere meaning kind, a
Hmm.
basis of kindness.
Hmm.
If they support an unkind person or a person who lies, quite
Right.
honestly, and behaves in an unconscionable manner, they need to be called out for it. However, you know, being a free society, the attendance to all of these fundamental churches is dropping like a rock.
Exactly.
People are
Exactly.
turning their back on it, and the media should probably do so also.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you had some other topics that you said you wanted to
Yeah.
either challenge on or enhance on, or I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
Well, let's talk about financial topics that
Okay.
are in the news within the last couple months. You and I have not spoken for a while, and one is Truth Social's
Hmm.
initial public offering, the IPO. And you said we need to have laws that prevent this from happening because it's fleecing the public and enriching, in this case, Donald Trump and his cohorts. Um, I don't know if you've seen the excerpts from the prospectus that accompanied the IPO, but the prospectus that accompanied the IPO says this is going to be a loser. The man behind it's being tried. You know, if anything happens to him, this will probably have no value. There is a long list of like red light, warning.
Right.
It's like the old Lost in Space, you know, warning,
Right.
warning, and it worked. But you can't legislate stupid. You, you know, you, stupid people are going to do stupid things. And what's going to happen is 1 million people are going to invest in Truth Social, and in all probability lose their money, and there will be 1 million people who will resent that, or at least over 900,000. Some of them will consider it a contribution to the cause, but the SEC did their job, and but you can't
Let me
stop people from
let me
doing dumb
push
things.
back a bit. Let me
Of
push back a
course.
bit in this regards, and it goes as follows. I agree with you that you can't legislate quote unquote stupid, etc. But what I found with Truth Social, it was a way for a billionaire to give Donald Trump money without having to go through the Federal Election Commission. Because what happens is we create this company before it goes bust. Trump gets to cash out a few million shares and make a couple $1 billion. Yeah, the other people are going to be held accountable, but that's a good way to fund his election, right?
Yeah.
Without having you directly give him the money.
And the beauty of this, Egberto, is that we might be able to find a middle ground. You know,
Okay.
maybe what we do is say initial shares or a share limitation. There need to be progressive rules
Mm-hmm.
for individual investors on up to the major investors, like that gentleman from Pennsylvania, actually, Vass or Fass or whatever his last name is,
Uh-huh.
that also has an interest in TikTok, I believe.
Right.
But
Right.
maybe he should not be allowed to get in large quantities or small portions at a time, where he's got to go buy 1,000 shares at a
Right.
time. And maybe that would democratize the IPO process, rather than to have somebody come in and say, all right, I'm going to put 700 million into it, prime the pump, escalate the stock, and that will allow more people to be fleeced.
Yeah.
And so there's an answer out there, but I'm going to respect the SEC for raising the red
Now,
flags.
let me just say that I think that is where we have a bit of a difference with regards to, let's say, the economic system. I know you believe in the stock market, kind of having a stock market, etc. Not anymore. See, because I have no faith. I don't think I think of the stock market as just a legalized gambling casino, right? But it is such a part of the American what is the word that I want to use? The fabric of Americana. And it's not an easy thing that would change. I mean, in the beginning, stock corporations were formed to do a job and then move out of existence, right? We suddenly gave them eternal life, and with that comes eternal stocks, and it's
Yeah.
just a model that I think is not a humane type of a model. But go ahead.
Well, I think it's been abused, because it used to be that Congress would have to authorize the formation of a corporation.
Right,
Then, for the longest period of time, a corporation had limited life of 40 years.
right.
And now it is in perpetuity,
Hmm.
and they no longer even are required to specify their specific mission.
Right.
Now their mission can be to generate profits,
Exactly.
however it would occur. So, of course, there have been abuses to the extreme again, and I would favor a rollback of that, where perhaps the corporate charter and should be evaluated. Are you still true to your mission? If not, do you force them to liquidate? But also, there are issues involved with the consolidation. They
Hmm.
say that more and more people own stock. Not
Not
true.
really. Yeah.
Fidelity, people own Fidelity. Fidelity runs a
Right.
market. Kemper, Transamerica, all the other
Right.
ones. So they kind of run things. Egberto, you and I agree, but I'm not giving up on the concept of publicly traded stocks. I would favor some breaks
And you see
to
that
this.
as a progressive, that's a compromise I would have to make because, like somebody, I don't remember who told me. They said, Egberto, you call yourself a pragmatic progressive. I have to be I have to be a little bit further left than the pragmatic progressive, but I understand that there has to be something done. And in a lot of ways, in as much as I'm not a fan of Bush, but I'll be 100% supporting him and voting for him because, again, these are difficult times. I think Bush has, I'm not Bush, I meant Biden. Biden, I think, has impressed me in that as he took power, there are many policies that are anathema to his beliefs, which I think are generally neoliberal, but that he actually went ahead and did things to support the policies that those of us that consider ourselves very progressives need and believe in. And he, after taking power and listening to other people, did them. So, I mean, how can I say because he has missed the ball in certain places that we're gonna penalize the entire country for that, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think he's done an extraordinary job to the
Yeah,
extent where I believe we could consider him one of our best presidents. Honestly, he has been wonderful. He's had to yield on some issues, but when he yields, he gets control of the issue. With the border being one of the issues.
right.
You know, the climate change versus the most drilling ever in the United States occurring, but yet he still has the climate change issue. He has been masterful in advancing a liberal agenda while knowing, let's make up some numbers.
Hmm.
He has pushed 90% of what we want forward a little bit.
You know,
And 10% maybe he's had to give up to get that 90. I
let me
respect that.
let me tell you something because I think more surrogates needs to be out there. Now, let me tell you, a lot of us who are progressives have a tendency to not think the way that you just stated, right? In other words, too often is all or nothing, and sometimes you have to, and you know how progressive I am, you know that, but I think, and you said he's one of the better presidents. Um, I don't think we need to just say that. We just have to show the numbers. We have a lot of progressives who love on Obama, a lot of progressives who love on Clinton, and he vastly did more for the progressive movement proper than
Yes.
any one of them or of them combined. Yes, we
Yes.
got Obamacare, but Obamacare was really just passing Romney Care nationally, which is a conservative type of a healthcare system, and we're paying the price for that right now. We have healthcare, but it's still
We have a
very
ways to go. Yeah.
we have ways to go. So I mean, I think there we're eating from the same candy bar. Absolutely so. Now I know where we're going to have some issues, and that is I strongly disagree with the way Brother Biden has handled Netanyahu and Israel. So let's see what you have to say about
Okay.
that. I know you mentioned that in the topics that you wanted to talk about.
I remember when this first happened back in October, and I was texting with a couple of cousins.
Hmm.
Okay. And one of the cousins said, uh, "What's going on here? What's the story?" And I said, "The story is there's no good guys."
Hmm.
You know, and so what we have to do is figure out how do we navigate a situation by two players for whom we have no respect. And I think what we have to do in that case is take a look at the strategies employed. First of all, Hamas did attack Israel. I do believe Netanyahu knew about it and allowed it to happen and delayed his response as far as to allow his 9/11 moment.
Wow, Tim. I've thought that, but coming from you, that's a shocker. That
No, Netanyahu, we must. Hamas is horrible, and I believe Netanyahu has gone to is lost.
Mhm.
He's certainly he is a criminal. And the international courts essentially said that yesterday, but even within Israel, he is continuing this war in order to kind of be a war president and kind of make himself immune from prosecution or certainly investigation. So you and I are so far in agreement. And
scary.
yeah, but now, you know, okay, we said, and I'm, you notice I haven't really used the word Israel or Palestinian, Israelis
Right.
or Palestinians so far. Let's talk about Hamas. Hamas did the violence. They seek to eliminate Israel. They're horrible. The crimes that they committed are awful. They were elected at one point, and they are no longer representing the Palestinian people. And really, they're operating a police state in Gaza. All right, they spy on their people, they kill their people, they restrict the freedoms of their people, inhibit freedom of expression of their people. Hamas is not good. And I think evidence of that is Jordan and Egypt, neither one are opening their borders to accept Palestinians and potentially leakage of Hamas. They know what Hamas is. They are thugs. They are gangsters. They are war criminals also. And international courts also indicted the
The
head of
leader of Hamas.
Hamas.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we have two bad characters and a lot of innocent people. So everybody wants peace in Gaza. I do too. But I think Hamas has to be defeated. I remember you and I, perhaps we swapped texts at one point, and we said, I said, Israel needs to attack Gaza and hit Hamas and get rid of them. And they did, with a vengeance, a horrible vengeance. But they forgot the component that goes with it. And General Petraeus said this whenever we were in Iraq. You attack, you know, you go for the victory, but behind your advances, you build. And Israel never built. What Israel should do with Biden's assistance is say, Saudi Arabia, other Sunni Arab nations, let's put together a coalition and rebuild the schools, the hospitals. Let's rebuild. Let's reactivate agriculture. Let's create jobs for Palestinian people who want to go through our lines and backfill. Not Hamas, but they need to build and offer the people something. They need to end the apartheid and allow them self-governance. They need to know that there's something on the other side of Hamas, but they need to continue to attack Hamas, not the blind 2,000-pound bombs. The tactic needs to change. The territory, it's more finessed. They need to destroy Hamas's infrastructure. And I don't want to say I'm pro-Palestinian. I'm not pro-Israeli. Ultimately, I am pro-peace, but I believe to have a longer and lasting peace, that additional components need to be factored in there. And I do believe that the continued elimination of Hamas is actually better for the Palestinian people.
Now, let me just say, I don't think we're in disagreement at all, but I want to add a few things here. Yes, I think Hamas, Israel knew Netanyahu knew the potential that Hamas would come in, and that he really didn't care too much about the people who live close to the border, because again, those are people who want to have a relationship with the Palestinians. Those are people, that whole area, those are people who want the two-state solution to be successful. Now, we talk about how bad Hamas is. For anybody who can kill and murder like Hamas did, I don't know that I could take a knife and put it into somebody or cut somebody's throats, or that is anathema to me, to figure that I could do that to another human being. So when I see that being one human doing that to another human, for me, it's not just disgusting, it's evil, which is what Hamas did. That said, ironically, the IDF, Netanyahu and his IDF did that orders of magnitude more. I don't know how not to look, even if they want to claim self-defense. I don't know how I can go ahead.
Well, it's not self-defense anymore.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's not anymore. There has to be retribution. You can't let them scurry behind the Gaza border. But they embedded themselves into hospitals.
But here,
They
let me answer that one though, my brother, because and help me out here. You're an American. You've seen us have people who've held hostages before. I doubt if you had 10 gunmen in a mall with 40,000 people, if we would drop a 2,000-pound bomb on that mall, because we know some of the people who will die, it would be Hamas. We would send the commandos in there. We would do surgical missions in there. That is what you do. But when you decimate 60% or more of infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, etc., there's a problem. I mean, there's a humane and a humanity problem there. And I think one of the reasons, if you listen to the right wingers talk about Palestinians, they talk about them as not human beings, but animals.
Yeah,
And
but that's wrong. That's
right,
wrong. Hamas is animals. Hamas are the ones that put their offices in hospitals and schools and so forth. They're the animals that also committed the war crimes.
but
So
let me
you should,
ask you,
to get those
the
40,000 people out of the mall, you need to get leaflets. You need to say, get out of there, move. And to a large extent, that's happened when Hamas has let them move. It's
uh,
there. There's no good guys in this, but the
no,
tactic needs to
right,
change.
but I don't think if we were okay, America, yes, Netanyahu threw it right back at the United States. Netanyahu said, "You drop an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so don't talk to us about that." But why do you miss that? That is true, and in a lot of ways, I say, yeah, we lost our virginity on that. But more important, we're talking about not because we did that, mean that we cannot move forward being a humane people, right?
Well,
So
that's the key phrase. We lost our virginity, but we relearned our humanity.
oh wow, I like that one. You got to put that one in a meme for me. I like that we lost our virginity, but we gained. I like that one. But here's the thing, Tim. Um, we have to again, if you take a look at Gaza and a few miles over, Tel Aviv, Haifa, and all these other places. These people are going to work every day. They're going and have their sipping on their coffee and all of that. If you ask a Martian to come down and ask who are the evil ones here, if you ask that question, it's not going to be it's not going to look like it's Hamas, even though we know they're the genesis of this current instantiation of the problem.
But that's consistent. Yeah, again, we're consistent with each other on this thing.
Yeah,
One of the things that we have to do is restore the rights of Palestinians and end apartheid, so
right.
they can have self-determination. They can have economic viability, much like Israel. And my belief is that a free Palestine, a free Gaza, would could thrive, especially with the stimulus from Sunni
You're, you're right.
nations and U.S. support.
There's no doubt. I mean, the interesting thing about it is if you look at the movement in the United States right now, that everybody is complaining about the protests, etc. A large number of those protesters are Jewish students and Palestinian students holding arms. It's amazing.
30% are not. And I also find it interesting that the largest, and perhaps it's not interesting, I guess maybe there's an inherent logic to it, but it's amazing that the media centers have the biggest student protest. Los Angeles and New York. You
Yeah,
know, I can't prove it. I suspect that there's some external
definitely.
influences on it that are not necessarily looking out for the goodwill of Israelis and Palestinians. But Egberto, you really brought up the good point. And it's consistent with what we're saying. And again, the Israeli students and the Palestinian students are arm in arm for humanity.
Yes.
Okay. And we Netanyahu, and when we started this conversation, I said Netanyahu and Hamas are contrary
Mm-hmm.
to humanity. We need to be humane and get this conversation past this current conflict. So
What do we do about it, Tim? I mean, I think we have to. Those of us that feel this way, we have to find a way to get traction from the warmongers and the appeasers. What do we do?
We need to destroy the entire tunnel network that Hamas has set up throughout the country. Need to destroy it, make it totally inoperational, and to the point where it cannot even be restored. Then we have to treat it like the 10 gunmen in the mall. Okay.
Right.
All right. We need to do it's surgical. It's a police action at this stage.
Right.
We've eliminated their foundation, their infrastructure, and now it's time to go after the individuals who continue to adhere to a terrorist philosophy.
And then the next option also is, I think, because another component to this, and I want you to address this one: settlements in the West Bank. I don't know if you'd looked at a map at the West Bank recently and see, I mean, how
It's a
do you
violation.
establish it? Yeah,
It's a total violation of an agreement of honor, of trust, of mutual prosperity.
right.
It's a total violation of it. If they wish to negotiate it and say, hey, we'd like to have a few more settlements, and perhaps and perhaps the people in the West Bank would say, well, let's can you give us some more voting rights or economic rights or something? I don't know, but it's a violation.
Yeah, I don't. The part about give us more rights, that part I think is like, no, they should be autonomous, and tell the truth, they should be a country by now. But the other thing is, I don't think we allow a whole lot of little Mexicos and little Canadas interspaced into our communities where they get guarded highways to get to. Like, think about Mexico having a little settlement in Oklahoma with one street that's guarded to get into Oklahoma, and I mean that doesn't work as
No, it
a
doesn't work.
country.
Yeah, yeah. The illegal settlements are a total violation
They
of
should
honor.
all be gone, and I hope we have a president that comes out and says, if we're going to continue supporting Israel, settlements gone. We need to have each of those territories need to have a contiguous space. And there's something I'd like our audience to know, because everybody likes to bring up, Rashida Tlaib would talk about from the river to the sea, and that's an anti-Semitic thing. Inside of the Likud charter, the Likud Party's charter, it does say Israel from the river to the sea. So, I mean, we have to be measured in the way we listen to what the river to the sea means. In the case of Rashida Tlaib, she's been explicit. I mean, there are people that believe in one Palestine, which means Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Gentile living together as it has always been. They believe there should be no territorial separation other than something different than what happened in 48, the UN creating something out of nothing, or something out of something that was already there. That is likely an impossibility. But I think the idea that we simply talk about from the river to the sea being an anti-Semitic trope, one then has to ask, what does the Likud party means by from the river to the sea in their platform?
It defines Israel, the geographic territory of Israel. But unfortunately, from the river to the sea, it has been co-opted to mean the elimination of Israel. The world's a better place with Israel at this point. We don't want it to go away. At least I hope we don't.
No, I don't. I look.
Yeah.
That is like
And
saying we want the United States to go away, right? I mean,
right.
look, we don't want the United States to go away, even though we got the lands in less than the better way,
And we could say that about
anywhere,
probably yeah, a
about
lot of
everywhere,
places.
right?
Yeah.
So the
History,
practical,
yeah, history has not been kind, and
right?
so right now the world's a better place with it.
Yeah, I
But
know. I agree.
and Israel would be better with a peaceful coexistence with Muslims.
Definitely.
And those are the waters that we need to dip our toes, to see what the temperature is, and to determine the depth. Only a fool tests the depth of water with both feet. That's an African proverb. Okay, so you don't jump into it, but it needs to be measured. It needs to be done.
Hey, you have another topic, and since you're going to be taking almost this full hour, we are running out of your topic time.
Okay, I want to talk about something that I agree and disagree with you about,
Okay,
the stock buybacks.
talk to me.
Okay, as constructed right now, they are horrible.
Hmm.
Philosophically, what they Reagan changed the executive compensation rules for executives back in the 80s, and as a result, managers and chief CEOs were no longer um, paid as professionals, and they and with long-term success of the company, they became short-term successes. So stock buybacks are a way of taking excess cash, generating a higher stock return, and unbelievably rewarding a small cabal of executives and shareholders, for to reward a small group of people. Now, whenever you take a company's cash and you use it for stock buybacks, that's like saying, I don't have anything else to invest in. We don't have any ideas for increasing the company's profitability, so we may as well buy our stock back.
Hmm.
To me, that's a losing management.
Hmm.
Now, right now, there's a 1% tax on buybacks, and Biden has wants to raise it to 4%, but that's still peanuts. It needs to be 10 to 12% to equal the taxes on dividends lost. Stock buybacks are really a tax shelter
Hmm.
for the rich.
Thank you.
Now, should that be prevented? No. But once again, you and I talk about the IPOs. Should the small investors be I don't know how to do it. Should you be limited to like 1,000 shares per transaction or something? I am not satisfied with the way stock buybacks are incentivized now and allowed now, because what it does, I think I saw the number over the last 4 years has been about $80 billion more buyback
More. Yeah.
investment, and this own. I think Exxon or Chevron or somebody has said they want to buy back $75 billion,
Yeah.
and the tax on that would be like $550 million, which is peanuts.
Hmm.
Would you rather have them say, hey, it would be more profitable to acknowledge that our current business model is eroding as the climate erodes? Should they be saying, let's take this 75 billion and put it into our energy grid? It should not be three grids in the United States: East, West, and
Hmm.
Texas. We should be breaking it into fractions around the country, where there are independent grids that could coexist, but if one goes down, it doesn't ripple through. Now, to me, that would be a wonderful use of $75 billion. And considering the stock buybacks are in the area of about $800 billion a year right now, which is more than capital investment, we need to disincentivize that. We need to restore, I think investing in employees, all my employees have been with me for years. I save 20% on labor costs because I don't have to train my employees. I don't have to hire somebody and train them, and good work.
And that is, let me
Yeah.
just say this. Let me just say this, because I intended to talk about when I figured we were going to talk about a little bit about capitalism, etc. And I was going to bring up about you and having employees and how you treat employees and how etc. And one of the statements that I was going to make is, even though my brother Tim will call that capitalism, I call it free enterprise, and not only free enterprise, but somebody who looks out for the social well-being of
Well,
their employees. With is and what's the word? The antithesis of what capitalism really is.
Well, I always my employees know that I admire Lincoln Electric, and I would strongly recommend you have someone from human resources from Lincoln Electric in Cleveland do a show with you.
Okay.
They are the highest paid employees in their field. At the end of the year, they get huge bonuses above and beyond that. They have waiting lists of people who want to work there. When somebody leaves, the employees hire who replaces them, and the employees are tougher than management. Management has never laid off an employee, and it's a very profitable company. And so by having good employees doing excellent work, the employees do something called total quality management, where the employees know that their bonuses are contingent upon the quality of their product. And so that's your marketing when everybody knows you've got the best product. Thank you, employees. It's not management. Management gets paid very well, I'm sure, but I aspire to that. My employees know that I aspire to that, but they also know that it's dependent upon their quality.
Interestingly, and that's one of the reasons I said, the god of recent capitalism is Milton Friedman. And Milton Friedman points out, if you can look up his speech in Wikipedia, that the sole purpose of executives is to ensure the maximization of value for the shareholder. Forget about the employee, whatever it takes. You are supposed to be maximizing the shareholder value. And what you just mentioned and what you do with your employees isn't the maximization of in this case, you are the shareholder, but isn't the maximization of your well-being.
The long-term success of the company will be dependent upon my ability to retain and train and motivate and assure men that adhere to the same qualities and profitability standard I
Agreed. But here's the kicker, Tim. Here's the kicker. What the capital sector does is as follows. As you said, the reason you will continue to have a whole lot of customers, good customers, is you do damn good work. When it comes to the capital structure of these other corporations, they may have the semblance of good work for some time, and under that time, then some sort of a Baines Capital or some other management company comes in, take advantage of that good name, gut the company, take the monies out that company, go under, and they go to the next. Another good company they buy, or it's a
Panera, Staples, go through all of these were viable companies, and then
exactly.
People buy them, they cut, they raise the prices, they eliminate the service, and
they move on,
and they can't recover it at that point.
Exactly. So I mean, we're probably going to stay in disagreement with the stock buybacks and actual stocks and so forth, because again, I think
we do agree. I think we do agree. There needs to be some disincentive to it. I don't have the answer for you on that.
Right.
But something's wrong, and even quadrupling the 1% excise tax on stock buybacks is not nearly enough.
Right.
We need to disincentivize that and have that money go into capital investment
There you go.
or
I agree.
employees or
But you know what
employees.
is you know what is so interesting? At first, when we had something like a 99 or 90% tax rate, that's the only thing they could really do. They had to
Yeah,
reinvest that money
so
because
they don't give it to
otherwise
the
it
government. Otherwise,
exactly.
yeah, no, the 91% rate, was probably pretty onerous, but that was in the 50s under Eisenhower, and we had
Right.
probably one of our greatest economic booms. But whenever Kennedy cut it to 78%, it actually did generate activity. But ever since that point, it has not yielded the returns that they keep promising
It
from Reagan on through Trump's.
just does
It
yeah.
it isn't yielding. What you want to do is incentivize guys. What you want them to do is invest in their people and invest in their product. And the only way to do that is make it so the few who own the companies can't take all the
There you
profits.
go. Tim, what's our do we have a last subject or
Nope,
another
that's it.
sub? That's
I
it.
isn't that enough, Egberto?
Well, let me tell you what I love, right? I try to tell all our audiences, and notice I said our audience. It's your audience, it's my audience, it's the people who make up the PDR Passes audience. And that is, um, we are trying here to establish that relationship with the viewers, which the people that if you have something to say and you have it well thought up, let's do this. Because when you didn't you gave me some idea. You call and say, Berto, this. I said, why the hell don't we do a program on this? Because it was so well thought out. You had these topics that, and I didn't know where you were going with them, but I think this is a type of media that I like, where everybody realizes that they are stakeholders in all that we do, and not just one directional or unidirectional or however you want to say.
Well, someday, Egberto, 5 or 6 years ago, we talked about someday we need to have an Egberto and Danahey show,
Yes.
and at some point we need to do that, and then let's take two different, two similar approaches on something and say how do you make it happen?
And Tim, I think we've been talking about this for years, and I told you you're pretty busy with what you're doing right now, but
Extremely.
I so missed what used to be the Tim Danahey show, because I was a dedicated listener to the Tim Danahey show, and it would be great that we can actually do it as a team. However, whether it's once a month, twice a month, 5 times a month, whatever time, sometime we should do it.
Well, we will, and we'll just have to put together a plan, and I'll have to carve out the time to make it so we can happen. Great
Well,
show, Egberto.
no, but wait,
What a
no, but
joy.
you know how
Oh,
I end it. You know how I end it. I said, yeah, I gotta end this the same way. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
um, I think you did well. Based on the topics we had, I probably would like to have explored or probably would want to ask you how you, from a progressive point of view, how you would combat the MAGA, uh, from more so than me trying to isolate the Republicans.
It's
Uh,
so interesting that you asked that, because somebody asked me that on the morning show, my KPFT 90.1. And you know what is the answer I gave them? Love.
yeah,
Love. I
yeah.
mean, it sounds corny, but I honestly really mean it. I speak to a lot of MAGA people. And when they realize that this is difficult in the grand scheme, right? Because we don't have time now for one-on-one and changing behaviors, because Trump is at the behest in 2024. But what I explained is that a lot of these people are genuinely scared to death, hurt to death, or I mean, and that's what is that. And I notice that when I've established an honest rapport with these folk, and that they trust me, that suddenly I can actually get to them. I had one call into the show and said, Egberto, it would be great if we got rid of the two parties and MAGA and progressives got together. That's where I act to. That's what one of my callers, if that wanted to have my heart pulled through my throat, that's where he landed. Maybe MAGA should meet with progressives.
I saw recently somewhere in the media where somebody says the media covers plane crashes, but they don't cover planes landing. Perhaps what we should do is cover planes landing,
Exactly.
and that's where what we can all celebrate.
We've been speaking to the one and only Tim Danahey, Tim Danahey of the Tim Danahey Show. Thank you so kindly for having been with Politics Done Right.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The TikTok narrative and the congressional vote are all wrong. It has nothing to do with the national security, but reciprocity. The national security angle is used to fool most without technical knowledge of how the internet works. China does not need TikTok either to get our personal information or to mislead us. Our capitalist platforms have always been willing to sell our souls for the mighty dollar. They can buy all the information on the open market and control us by paying the capitalists for ads of all forms to deceive us all. The reciprocity angle is honest and makes more sense. We can't operate Facebook and our social media unfettered in China, so why did we allow access to our markets in the first place? Are we going to kill millions of businesses created on TikTok? Congress wants to force a sale to U.S. mega capitalists under false pretenses. Let's be clear. TikTok is technically much better than all the other platforms. Our capitalists, like parasites, want to do what they do best: steal someone else's intellect and property with false justifications.
I got a limerick for you.
Yes. All right.
This is extended limerick. I was going to put it on PDR the other day, but just didn't get a chance. But here it is, and I'll put it on later. Hamas and Hezbollah demand that Palestine be Jewless. Attacked by terrorists, Israel's revenge is ruthless, bombing innocent Gazans day after day, even killing hostages who get in the way. Politicians right and left continue to be clueless, while children in the street are starving and shoeless. On and on, Arabs and Israelis fight. Both sides say they are in the right, filling the skies with bombs and lies, smashing teeth and bashing eyes, until anyone who survives is both blind and toothless.
Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES.